Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Yesterday, House of Commons passed a resolution, and the resolution is that Canada declares emergency, a national emergency considering the climate change. So it's a climate emergency in Canada, and the government by this resolution stands committed to meet the targets of emission reduction standards under the Paris Agreement. You remember that once I talked about how government of Canada has absolutely failed to meet those standards, while Germany, USA, and host of other countries. But coming to this declaration, this resolution, I'm shocked at what the politicians think the people to be. Do they take the people to be dumb, driven cattle, ignorant, stupid, who can be manipulated and maneuvered into believing every nonsense that they talk? This resolution is meaningless and irrelevant. And the vote makes a headlines across the country. But the support for the resolution does not mean anything because the resolution is not binding and is politically motivated. The resolution came just hours before the government is set to announce, or rather announced by now, whether to let the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion proceed, despite outcry from the environmental groups. As a matter of fact, the government is working under the dictates of people who have no commitment to the economic growth of the country. Now, coming to the resolution, to show its irrelevance and its camouflage or covering for the misleading action of the government. It's like that. The House of Commons has two rules and two sets of motion, orders and resolution. The first is exactly that, an order from the House of Commons that the government has to carry out something. The resolution passed yesterday is not an order. It's a non-binding and requires no action from the government. So, when Minister McKenna gets this resolution passed, and the government is not bound or committed to carry it out, or rather would not carry it out, what the purpose? It is only a declaration of opinion. It does not need any action to be taken. And that is not what I'm saying. I'm quoting from the procedural rules of the House of Commons. The resolution is a non-binding motion, carries and requires no action. These are the exact words. As a matter of fact, it was a political opportunity for the government to affirm its own commitment to meet the climate change. But the Parliament Budget Officer, do you remember what did he say? That the current price of carbon is not enough to reduce emissions. So how are they going to do it? The carbon tax is increasing inflation, but doesn't meet the purpose. It would in no way affect the purpose. And another beauty, minutes before the vote was to take place for this non-binding resolution, the contempt that the Prime Minister has for the House was shown. He left the House of Commons without casting his vote, took a jet, flew to Toronto. That shows that he is ignoring the resolution, that he is not committed to the resolution, and his one flight is equal to hundreds of the commercial flights. I mean, hundreds of passengers going in one commercial flight and he going in his special jet. So this is only a statement that does not mean any. Excuse me. It does not mean anything. Then what was the motion designed to do? It is only, as I said, is an opinion. And as a matter of fact, there are three cities which have already declared climate emergencies: Vancouver, Kingston, and Ottawa. And these emergencies were declared locally by the municipal committees. The Vancouver emergency declared that the city staff should come up with the proposals how to reduce and report back. Now, asking the staff to come with a proposal doesn't need an emergency. Doesn't need a declaration of emergencies to meet the extreme need, not to ask the staff to give the proposal. Kingston has not said anything, but they have simply asked the officials to go ahead with the strategic planning sessions. Why can't they do that without declaring emergency? As a matter of fact, the whole thing smacks of stupidity and a showmanship, which has no meaning. And the showmanship also doesn't have a meaning. Now, how is it irrelevant? It's irrelevant for the simple reason that the whole talk of global warming, no, I'm not talking of the climate change, we have talked enough. We know that the climate change is a natural phenomenon, it's going to happen. Whether the government declares a national emergency, declares a war, it cannot do anything. And change is a law of nature, it would be there. But global warming is being presented as a distorted truth. And it creates to ensnare the mind of the people to make them amenable to further exploitation. The concocted misrepresentation of facts with a connivance and abetment by brilliant scientists makes the task easier. Now, this global warming is a politically motivated distortion of climate science. Now that the argument is being bolstered by unexpected sources, and that is organizations like Greenpeace. When I hear that most of the scientists are in favor of saying that there is a global warming, I thought, let me do some research. You'll be amazed at the results of the research. Contrary to what the left-wing politicians and the votaries of the global warming say, that 97% of the scientists' consensus is in favor of global warming. 11,944 papers from the peer-reviewed journals scrutinized 11,944 papers. 64% of them expressed no opinion at all. 97% refer only to the majority who did so. And only 4% of 29,000 authors of those papers really believe that the global warming is there. Now, if just 4% of 29,083 authors agree, and then the opinion of these 4% is touted as a majority opinion, as a majority consensus, can there be anything more despicable? The whole thing is craftily manufactured fact. And the talk of the global warming here, that the permafrost in Arctic is going away. Why don't they accept the fact that there has been snowfall in Sahara? There has been snowfall in Australia. The ice cap in Antarctica has increased. So the balance remains the same. Nature believes in maintaining a balance. It takes away from one to the other. And that's what the socialist government do. They only ensure that the balance should be of poverty. Here it's a climate balance. So that cannot be changed. As I said earlier, 80% of the total climate change is dependent on the natural factors, on the wetlands, on the bogs, on the rivers, on agriculture, on dairy. So how can we change that? Coming back to the fact that people, only 4% think global warming is there. And the whole thing has been created. It's just like that, there was a time when it was thought that the earth is the center of the universe. The whole thing of global warming reminds me of the story of Galileo. Galileo discovered that sun and not the earth is the center of the system. And the earth revolves around the sun. The Catholic Church caused him to die, sentenced to death. But he recanted and he was allowed to live under house arrest. Now, why I'm recounting the story of Galileo is that the prevalent myth always supersedes a historical fact. A myth is created with the help of brilliant minds who might be purchased or have an axe to grind because of the grants that they get from the government, the money they get. And money makes the mayor go. So why should money not make the scientists go? The abomination that is occurring today in the climate issue is the biggest threat to enlightenment, to the spirit of Renaissance since Galileo. At that time, the dawn of the Renaissance was threatened by the Catholic Church. And now the new age of augmented intelligence, artificial intelligence, is being threatened by the irresponsible politicians aided and abetted by purchased scientists. This is as bad a thing as has ever happened in the history of science and the history of mankind. And this declaration of national emergency only shows to what depth can the politicians fall to further their agenda. But my grouse is that even the opposition goes blindly with it. They don't use their brains. And Russia is coming up today with a so-called plan to ensure that the capital change can be controlled. Are these people supra-nature? Can they manipulate nature? I don't deny that nature can be manipulated, but that manipulation can have a disastrous result. The way if you have underground nuclear tests, the whole geographical strata would be disturbed. So you have manipulated nature, but with disastrous results. The toxic combination of fake rationalism and political ideology are taking over real science, real reason. The complete hoaxes are being projected to let people ignore the basic needs, the concept of happiness, the vulnerable sections of society that need to be protected. So people are being led astray from the real path for the simple reason so that they may not revolt. After human endurance has a limit, and the politicians manipulate people, show them the promised land which doesn't exist. And then they come up with these zany ideas like declaring national emergency, which have either no validity or is a manipulated validity. And then they are aware that these declarations are meaningless and they'll impact some people who will say, wow, the government is so concerned with the climate change. And when the ballot time comes, they'll cast their vote in their favor. But in the meantime, the government can blithely go ahead with wasting the pressure resources, contributing to the climate change, rather aiding and its increase rather than trying to control it. This is such a paradox and contradiction. Let people wake up and realize that such declarations are merely an attempt to manipulate, an attempt to mislead, misinform, and lead the people astray. Thank you.